Dzień dobry, nazywam się Błażej Hrabkowicz, to jest 28. edycja festiwalu EnergaCAMERIMAGE w Toruniu i online. Hello, my name is Błażej Hrabkowicz. This is the 28th edition of EnergaCAMERIMAGE Festival in Toruń and online. Naszym gościem jest operator, our guest is cinematographer Anthony Dod Mantle. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Błażej.
Usually we greet you in Toruń. We met in Toruń a couple of times. Now you're in Denmark, I guess?
I'm stuck in mink-ridden Denmark.
Yeah, we're in Poland. I'm in Warsaw, Denmark. This is our connection. This year, you are at the festival with The Undoing. Well, you are at the festival, let's say. You are at the festival with The Undoing, the mini-series created by David E. Kelly, directed by Susanne Bier. From what I gather, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have not done many TV work before that. I think you did one episode of Wallander?
Did two. I did 2 episodes. I did the first 2 episodes of Wallander to start it up. That's it.
Yeah. So
Actually, I did a couple of rebellious alternative TV dramas with Danny Boyle immediately before I did 28 Days Later. That kind of brought us together. And that's like, wow, that's 12 years ago. And now I'm going, after this Susanne Bier, I'm going back to Danny Boyle actually to do some more. It's funny.
Great. But
it's changing all the time.
How is the experience of working on a miniseries like The Undoing different for you than experience working on a feature film? What is the main difference for you?
You know, from my heart, I don't want it to be any different. Like from my heart and my integrity as a cinematographer, I really don't want it to be any different. And I don't essentially see why it should be much different if you get the right people together. There are certain physical complications to shooting, 6 hours of real material. That means like 160 hours of material, as opposed to shooting a 90 minutes film or 2-hour film. Of course, there's a difference in workload, but in a sense, that can be a beautiful privilege that you put yourself in not just one tunnel for 90 minutes, but you put yourself in the same tunnel for 6 months or 9 months. And it's a big if the chemistry and the climate and the collaboration is good, because then you're privileged to be having an even longer shot of a good drug. But that's not always the case. And I have to say, without being too pretentious about it, there are some television or long format drama projects that require specific intelligence and approach, because if they're mixed directors, changing crew too much, that creates an instability, which I think ultimately, to cut a long story short, creates a superficial, let's make a good show kind of attitude. And I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I come from film. I come from small film crews, and you stay together like a family. And I think Poland has very often been the same. And you stay with your people and you work very closely with them. I'm not a fan of large shows where people come on board and then fall off, and come on board and then fall off. So that's the enemy of these kind of things. I don't like that at all.
So for you, it was very important that you had one director for every episode, and you worked with Susanne Bier all the time. There wasn't a case of different directors. So in terms of your collaboration with Susanne Bier on this project, did you do a lot of sort of visual preparation, like storyboards or something like that, or maybe just discussions, pre-discussions about how do you imagine this show to look?
Yeah, I mean, I had 6 or 8 weeks prep with Susanne Bier, and people who work with Susanne Bier understand what I'm talking about. I think I had her for about 3 days, and I don't necessarily think that's a positive thing, but it could be an indication of trust. I also felt she could have been more present in some ways, but it certainly, to answer your question, immediately creates a situation that you're working together with other departments much more than you are with her. That's not necessarily a bad thing. She's got plenty of work to do with her actors, which she's very focused on, and she's very, very focused on the script. That's the positive side of that situation. The downside of the situation is you're left to your own demands quite a lot. So I did essential meetings with her about the look and about the ideas, and we built on the trust we had together, and it goes from there. And then she checks in every now and then, very occasionally, and you work from that. And for her, everything seems to fall together in the edit. DOPs are different. They like to prepare a lot more, and some directors are different. Every director is different, but that's her process with her cinematographer, and that's the way it works. So no storyboards as such. We storyboarded a little bit of the final sequence, which I can't tell you about because you haven't seen it, but otherwise it was just like a space, a lot of acting, a lot of talking, and I created the setup where we could break out a little crew and shoot some other material just to get some cinema into the story.
Yeah, you mentioned getting some cinema into a story, and but what from if I understand you correctly, the visual style of the whole thing was mainly your department. That Susanne Bier is a director who really rather focuses on working with actors.
I'm absolutely sure that Susanna wants and is capable of focusing equally on every department on a film. But the fact of the matter is she's super focused on her actors, and in this case on David Kelly's script, because she was improving it all the time. So I think given she had a good crew of people around her that she felt safe with, it was easier for her to use more energy on that. Mm-hmm. We certainly prepped together, and there's nothing we've done on the film that she didn't have an opinion about. It's just sometimes hard, I think, with her to know up front exactly what she wants. So you have a slightly bigger situation, not necessarily a risk, that you go into a situation with an amazing number of people and great actors, and you haven't planned the scene, you let it unfold, and sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's a little bit more restrictive because you just haven't been able to introduce different ideas. And she likes to do a lot of acting, a lot of words. There are a lot of words in this film that have to be delivered onto picture, so you spend a lot of your time and energy getting that done with some amazing actors, of course, which is the good thing about it. Mm-hmm. But for me as a working cinematographer as well, and for any other cinematographer, it's an agreement you have to make with yourself. This is about that, and then you have to find the holes and trust the editing, I guess.
How did you try to, because of course when you have a show or a film which is based on a dialogue and which is based on really actors, there is this idea, there is this question of how to make it cinematic, how to also make it visual. And you can, of course, you can film two people talking in a room in a way that is visually interesting. So I'm, well, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't. Maybe you disagree with me. But I'm interested in a way you approached it. What did you try? What ideas did you try to make it like more cinematic, just like you said?
Well, number one, I don't even know if it is. I love your festival because it says the art of cinematography, and I love you fellas to death for that. So keep it up. And I feel I'm in Camerimage this year with this pilot, with a very different product to perhaps what I often come with. And this isn't necessarily a carbon copy of the kind of work I'm going to be doing in the future. That's no negative or positive comment. It's just an observation. I'm glad you think there is if you do think there's a visual element there. It's well done, it's professionally done, it's got a machinery, industrial look about it. It tells a story about very rich people in a very rich part of the world. And to answer your question, as best I can, as regarding the undoing, I just had to, very early on, negotiate with Susanna, how do we get whatever we call cinematic space and poetry or metaphysics or enigma, symbolism into this show which I hate the word show as well, I hate that fucking word, but that said, how do we get that element into a product that is always going to be a little bit of an avalanche of words and who done it? And I mean, Hitchcock did it 50, 60 years ago. There are plenty of examples of great American directors who've done it, great Polish directors where there's a heavy, Bergman, where there was a heavy element of wording, but there's still a way of doing this where you get visual poetry into a film. Some directors seem to combine it with the words and maybe take less takes and work it into the mise en scène. That's the way to go. That's not the way she works on this. It's not the way she worked. You know you're going to spend most of the day on the meat of the scene, and and she's very thorough. So she goes 3 times this way, 3 times that way, a wide shot 3 times. That's the way Susanna works. It's coverage. It's not my blood and guts of what I love to do most, but it's effective for her, and that's why she gets good performances. So in the prep, I just really tried hard to introduce themes that were relevant to the characters with Susanna that could then become small splinter unit shoots that I could give to the splinter unit to pick up images and come back to me and come back to edit, and we could look at them and send them out again, and that's how we did it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So whether it works or not, I don't know.
Sorry?
Whether it works or not, I don't know. I'm happy.
Was it the first time you worked with a director who's so much focused on this kind of script aspect, acting aspect, and sort of this efficiency of storytelling? Because you've worked with many different directors, like for example Danny Boyle. Is Susanne Bier the first one so much focused on all these things you are talking about that you worked with?
No, not necessarily. I think most directors, good directors, would like to feel that they focus, in the correct balance on the balance of the word, the content, the drama, and the psychology, and the visual world of whether you talk about visual platforms and mini pilots or rock videos or cinema. For me, it's all the same. It's a visual language. If you take the picture in the space away from cinema, listen to the fucking radio, for God's sake. So all directors want to find that balance, and they just have a different way of doing it. And some veer more to one direction, some veer towards the other. I've worked, as you say, I've made 7 or 8 films with Danny Boyle. He's very much about words as well, but he is a lover of the image, and he's a big lover of sound, and that's quite visible and present in the space, even in pre-production, and you feel it in the writing and what he prepares. You feel that words tend to dissipate out of the scripts and more visuals come in. Some directors are like that, and Danny is like that, and many other directors I've worked with explore that balance, and I think that's what prep is about and what a good script is about. I don't think a good script is about a Bible of words that just is laid on a table and thrown at you. It may be a good Bible, but then make a fucking book. If we're not trying to develop a visual language, then I see no point for sitting in Camerimage today. And that is a battle, and it's a creative battle, a positive battle that is our duty as cinematographers, first and foremost, to protect and to induce, together with the other people on the floor. And some directors are, veering more one direction than some the other. Susanna wasn't the best or the worst example of that. Susanna's what she is, and I've known her for 35 years, so I knew it was going to be like that. And her films are like that. And it's quite interesting. You won't probably, looking back on your record, see many Susanne Bier films at Camerimage, because the result of it is a very, very specific aesthetic that does her very well, but it's not necessarily something that veers towards this kind of festival. It's quite interesting, actually. I'm seeing that now, looking back. I've never thought about it before, but now I can see, the kind of films I do, the kind of films she does. But when you go into a project, and embrace it, and it becomes what it becomes.
Yeah, so it's interesting that she actually decided to do this thing, knowing that her style and her approach is so different than yours.
I don't think it's a surprise, because I was in a situation in my life where it suited me really well.
Okay.
I love New York. I know Susanna. I like David Kelly's script. I had a pretty good chance of getting a pretty good crew of people together who I, was enjoying working with, for the most of anyway. I liked the script, which is the most important thing. And I thought, hey, give it a go. I've done commercials with Susanna, but let's give it a go. We've tried before. I've known her for 35 years and know the person I know in her that I could explore. So I wanted to try and see where we could take each other. And I think maybe I got her a little bit down the road. And that's why we're in Camerimage, for hoping. I don't know. It's very hard to speak about it, but I don't think, it's an emphatic illustration of cinematic, language. Your festival's so amazing for that. You see an array of aesthetics that come from all walks of life and cultures and religions and gender, and this is just one of them. But I think given it's a 6-hour miniseries for a very, very large mainstream audience, and it's not obviously, but it is doing very well. It's served its purpose, and I suspect HBO are probably very happy. And I just wanted to take us somewhere and see if I could get her down a new road or an interesting road. And I have my perception of the results, and I'm absolutely sure Susanna has her perception of the results. And we don't talk much more about it. It's done. It's done. It's a done doing.
Yeah, and you can see this done doing during EnergaCAMERIMAGE Festival in a TV pilots competition. Anthony Dod Mantle was with us. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks very much, guys.
Hope to see you in person next year.
Yeah, I'd like to get back there. Take care, guys.
Take care. Bye.